Fall Equinox, September 23rd, 2023. Written, directed, and produced by Reverend Dr. Dickie Joe Mullen. This is a time of year where there is a shift between days of light towards times of darkness. It is the second harvest and beginning of a new season leading towards winter. Motivation is in the air, and gnomes and trolls may be more active. Dr. Mullen will now share important insights about the fall equinox.
Hello, stargazers. I'm astrologer and paranormal investigator Dickie Joe Mullen, saying, isn't it a relief that the long, hot summer is finally over? This is about the first day of autumn, the fall equinox, and September 23rd, 2023 at 2:50 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time is when summer is finally over and autumn officially begins. There's a special horoscope that's done at the beginning of each new season. It's called an ingress chart, where we look at that to see what the season ahead is going to hold. So thinking about what autumn, another shift in the wheel of the year, means, this is the festival of Mabon, M-A-B-O-N, which means great sun in the Welsh language. And this is about a god of light who is overseeing the balance of day and night. At the autumn equinox, the balance of day and night, the hours above the day of night are as close to the day of light and night will be as close. Hours of light and darkness are as close, as equally divided as they will be that year. That varies from latitude to latitude, but we're looking at a real turning point, a shift between the days of sunlight and the times of darkness. And what have you harvested since the spring season began? If you're a gardener or farmer, that can literally mean your harvest. But for many of us who live far from the land, since Lammas or Lofmas, that was the first of the harvest festivals. This is the second of the three harvest festivals, the fall equinox. And the third one, of course, is Halloween, when the hours of darkness are definitely on the rise. But we have a new season here to look forward to look ahead at. Let's see what it holds for everybody. Looking at the autumn equinox chart, and what can we expect? The Sun and Mars are both in the sign of Libra. The Sun is at 0 Libra. Remember, that marks the beginning. The cardinal signs are Libra, Capricorn, Aries, and Cancer, and that's fall, winter, spring, and summer. Those are your solstices and your equinoxes, your sun festivals. And this one of Mabon brings us the greatest change in the weather in most places. With the Sun in Libra and the Mars in Libra, the change in the weather here can represent literal temperature extremes, more so than we would expect in the fall, thinking of astrometeorology, the astrology of weather. The Sun and Mars in Libra emphasize justice. Who knows what's fair? What does a legal matter mean? Here in the United States, we have a crisis going on with the Supreme Court. Whether they're valid, whether they can police themselves or someone else has to oversee them. That's really quite a thing when you think of what the Supreme Court is. But who the justices really are, what they're really doing, that also can filter down into the more local courts, those in each part of the state or the state Supreme Courts, and in other parts of the world, also whatever legal system there might be in place. Looking at how valid and truthful it really is. What a sensitive subject, but that's likely to be a very important issue right now. The moon is in Capricorn for this fall equinox. That affects the whole time period until the winter solstice, and that shows a great emotional attachment to security, emotionally and financially, and also a very serious state of mind. Pluto has retrograded all the way back into Capricorn for right now. So a wide applying, mutually applying Moon-Pluto conjunction is here. This is a deep emotional catharsis for many people. Again, the focus on mental health continues. And Pluto relates to anything to do with below the Earth's surface, such as earthquakes or volcanoes. So there may be some activity. Remember, we're looking at the whole time period till the winter solstice in December. But that could be something that'll be significant right now. We have Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, both retrograde, and this is a lot of slowness and revamping over what we can do with ecology and to love and care for planet Earth. On a lighter note, the fall equinox can bring the earth elementals to the surface, so gnomes and trolls and other earthy creatures that are not of the human element. And of course we have animals going into hibernation in many parts of the country during this season, and what that means to them. With people, we think of our circadian rhythms and how we change with each season of the year, particularly our friends in the more northern states in Canada. Here in Florida, it's kind of the land of perpetual summer, at least to an extent. But being aware of how the seasonal shift is affecting your own urge to go within. We see this in nature with the changing of the colors of the leaves too. And so focusing on all of that for the fall equinox is part of our reality here. There is the need to be patient with anything to do with older or younger people because Saturn is continuing to be retrograde, and that planet relates especially to the age gap, the very old or the very young. Also, time changes. We'll be going through a time change, whether to have standard or daylight time, and that really affects people. That'll be taking place during this season. I personally am in favor of having the standard time zone, and daylight savings time is a really sensitive issue with astrology. It messes up our charts all the time. We have to deal with it. So I get emotional just talking about it. But when the time shift occurs, it's important to be careful with things like driving, concentrating, timing your schedule, getting there on time. Even just a 1 hour shift, it takes most people at least 7 days to adapt to it. So that'll be going on in different areas. In England, there's the British summertime. We have daylight savings time in most of the states here right now. And so allowing for that and how that affects us is very significant. Neptune is retrograde, which can be very useful for past life regression and dreams that you have. If you can't interpret them or understand what they mean in a more standard way, might be past life flashes or past life occurrences. The autumn equinox brings us a favorable Venus-Mars aspect. It's a sextile from Venus in Leo, sextiling Mars in Libra. We also have a mutual reception involving Venus. A mutual reception is when planets are in each other's ruling signs. You know that the Sun rules Leo and Venus rules Libra. So the Sun in Libra and Venus in Leo, the planets are in each other's ruling signs, and they give the ability to get out of anything we get into. And so this is a reciprocal energy expressed for different ways that can be very favorable, involving love. And those who have a lot of Libra and a lot of Leo in their birth charts, if you've gotten yourself into any kind of a pickle, whether it's romantic or otherwise, smile as you greet this season, because you'll find a way out if you look just a little bit. Venus in Leo is very theatrical, Spending more on a hobby or other pleasures can appeal to many of us. And remember that Venus in Leo is in mutual reception with the Sun in Libra. So the Sun goes back into Leo. And this is an extended holiday. A lot of us might not want to come back from summer vacation with the autumn equinox, and might not. Jupiter is conjoining Uranus, and that's a very rare conjunction. Those two planets don't come together that often. It's changing values, both spiritually and financially. Mercury will be opposing Neptune, which is retrograde. They're not in mutual reception, but they are in opposition. And this is the need to analyze truth. We like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but there could be some tall tales. They used to be called fish stories, where with each story the fish that we caught gets longer and longer. Well, be forgiving if you notice people exaggerating or telling some fish stories, but with Mercury opposing Neptune, if claims or credentials are made that are important, and you just don't know if someone really graduated from Harvard or if they falsified the credentials, whatever, look to see if it is the truth or not, because there is a lot of fantasy floating around. The force of habit is particularly strong because of the large number of retrograde planets we have during this season of fall going into the winter solstice. Past lives, again, can be in evidence, but if you've been working to correct a habit, if it's eating too much or the wrong things or any type of substance abuse, there could be maybe getting away from a different type of addiction. We can get addicted to a relationship, home shopping network. I have a client who is just working with that addiction, believe it or not. Can also get addicted to going to the beach here in Florida. Anything that you keep doing that you know isn't the best for you is an addiction. And this is a very good season, this autumn season, for looking at what addiction means to you. The moon phase for the fall equinox is the first quarter moon. The first quarter moon means motivation is very high. There's a desire to get started with business. There can be fault finding and impatience with others, and there's a lot of focus on survival skills, making the brightest and best in the complicated world that we're inheriting right now. This event chart is telling you what to expect during this whole time period as the autumn begins. There is a really strong, again, earth element, which is what's happening with the earth, our life on earth, and I'm thinking it might tie in with how practical the space program really is. There's all sorts of talk here in Central Florida about colonizing the moon, Mars, whether that's a good idea, whether that's really practical, and we may see some interesting developments there for those of you who are space buffs. This is Dickie Jo wishing you a bright and interesting autumn season.
Reverend Dr. Dickie Jo Mullen, astrologer, psychic, and parapsychologist. Dr. Mullen provides the following services: astrology, psychic, rune, and tarot card readings, face-to-face and Zoom readings and seances, and webinars and face-to-face presentations. Thank you for watching. Reverend Dr. Dickie Jo Mullen can be contacted at her skymaiden@juno.com email address. She also has a Facebook page, which she invites you to view, and her WordPress site, where she has additional resources.